Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. What is happening right now with the Washington Post can, I think, only be described with one word. It's an absolute storm. Now, dysfunction within the office has been something that people have been reporting on for a very long time. We've heard all the stories of journalists resigning from the outlet, citing a toxic, woke culture, and for the most part, most of it has been behind doors. It's been internal toxic behavior, a toxic work environment that we haven't exactly seen in the public until now. And who would have thought that one simple retweet would be the catalyst to seeing it all? You guys might have heard of Washington Post journalist David Weigel, who retweeted a very, I'd say, benign joke about every girl being bi. You just have to figure out if it's polar or sexual. I mean, a relatively benign joke that you'd hear from a stand-up comedian or something. But his simple retweeting of this joke on his Twitter timeline sent shockwaves through the Washington Post office, leading to massive feminist outcry, how dare he, which turned into a public storm on Twitter between different Washington Post colleagues, all started by a woman named Felicia Somnez. And the final chapter, the final act to this story, Mrs. Felicia Somnez has officially been fired. I mean, who would have seen that one coming? Talk about woke backfire. The woke Karen feminist, who tried getting her colleague fired for retweeting a joke, ended up herself being the one on the chopping block. It turns out there's a whole lot more to this story than initially meets the eye. Let me show you guys everything that's going on. But of course, before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. With that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so of course you know the initial story, I'm sure you do. Washington Post Felicia Somnez blasts colleague David Weigel for retweeting a sexist joke. And of course, David Weigel immediately responded and immediately apologized. He writes, "I just removed a retweet of an offensive joke. I apologize and did not mean to cause any harm." You know, with regular, normal adults, it probably should have ended right there. But these woke Karen feminists who just can't let things go and can't take a joke, it never just ends there. I mean, we can't just be adults and accept humor. No, of course not when Karens are around. Mrs. Felicia Somnez, I mean, I'm just gonna scroll really quickly. Maybe I'll do like a little animated scroll here on the side for you guys to see. Felicia Somnez's Twitter feed is unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, constant retweeting and promoting all of the industry shills that are defending her. Monologue after monologue. I'm the victim. Woe is me. Woe is me. Attacking the Washington Post with tweets like this. Of course, the Washington Post is a great workplace. It's a great workplace for them. The system is working for them. What about everyone else? The general assignment team, the morning mix team, the newsletter researchers. And by the way, this is part of a 16 tweet thread, and it's just endless. I'm being attacked. I'm the victim. I was just speaking out. But the reality is a little bit different like usual. The reality is, it was a joke, and Felicia Somnez, who's supposed to be operating as an adult in an adult professional environment, caused a massive public relations cluster F for the Washington Post. And it got so bad at one point that Washington Post journalists and employees started snapping at each other. Take a look at this interaction right over here. Felicia Somnez writes, "There are women you don't know and you may never meet, but who see a Post reporter retweet a sexist joke and wonder whether they're supposed to accept that as normal because no one at the Post says anything about it, saying something matters to them and it matters to me." Then Jose A. Del Real responds, "Fighting sexism and misogyny matters deeply to me. I always admire your bravery in sharing your story, and I support your fight against retribution for doing so. Entirely separate, I hope you reconsider the cruelty you regularly unleash against colleagues." The same, of course, goes for racism and anti-LGBTQ discrimination and denigration of any marginalized group. It's all wrong. There is no cruelty in saying so. It is against our company's stated values. I reject your attempt to make a specific critique of your regular public bullying into a sweeping opera about principles. As I said, Weigel's retweet was offensive and should be called out. It was strongly condemned internally, so I'm confused about your implication otherwise. Jose A. Del Real is a Washington Post reporter and features writer, and it seems as though he had enough enough, and as he sees Mrs. Felicia Somnes making this whole ordeal about herself and making it about this public stance for feminism, taking a joke and turning it into this big existential battle for women in society, he simply points out the fact that Mrs. Felicia is actually a toxic workplace bully who regularly berates people at the Washington Post. Who would have seen that one coming? The loudest Karen in the room, who's constantly yelling from the mountaintops about their own personal virtue, happens to also be the most toxic person in the room. She had a massive, and I mean massive, meltdown, simply objecting to a retweet of a sexist joke, and a colleague's false accusation of bullying leads to this. And she just starts retweeting all the backlash she's getting on Twitter. By the way, Felicia Somnes, great friends with Taylor Lorenz. The same exact tactics that we always see. A bully in the industry, trying to make everything about themselves in the moment they receive any backlash. The woe is me tactic, I'm a victim of cyberbullying, yada yada yada. It's just so convenient and predictable. It boils down to the same topic we've been talking about recently. Leftist bullying tactics and intimidation tactics. The reality is, at the Washington Post, there's a select few, a select group of very powerful, very manipulative individuals who rule by intimidation. Glenn Greenwald gives us some insight. In Slack channels, media employees are discussing the Felicia Somnes insanity. They all know it will be a permanent mark against them if they weigh in to do anything but herald her bravery. That's the climate of fear at these outlets for everything. Dissent killing by design. People are too scared to speak out because you can have your career destroyed for going against the feminist power structure. And apparently in this case, Mrs. Felicia Somnes put herself in a very interesting position of power. Glenn Greenwald once again gives us the inside scoop. I'll bet any money that Felicia Somnes' lawyer told her that she can and should do whatever she wants, because any action against her by the Washington Post will be cast as, quote, retaliation for her having unsuccessfully sued them. They're petrified of her. They're punishing reporters on her demand. Interesting thing here, Washington Post reporter sues paper for discrimination. Felicia Somnes sued the Washington Post for discrimination, and guess what the actual story was? In a suit filed Wednesday in the DC Superior Court, Somnes said that she was not allowed to report on specific misconduct after she issued a statement in September 2018 on the resignation of Los Angeles Times journalist who she said assaulted her in China. The individual that she accused said that what happened was consensual. Somnes said in the statement that she was grateful the Times took her allegations seriously but criticized how it handled the investigation, and said that the response of institutions is essential to combating certain misconduct. She said that the Post then barred her from writing about Christine Blasey Ford's assault allegations against Brett Kavanaugh, now a Supreme Court justice. So clearly, there was doubts that she might have lobbed a false accusation, and also there might be a conflict of interest. She wasn't the right person to be covering this specific story impartially, and so they blocked her, and she sued for discrimination and lost. And so the Washington Post has been petrified of her that she's just going to sue them again, and so it seems as though they've had a little bit of a hands-off report with her. But to me, what it looks like is manipulation, abuse of power, false accusations of victimhood for your own personal benefit. Where have we seen that before?
I'm sorry.
And while the whole thing finishes in spectacular fashion, Washington Post fires reporter Felicia Somnes after a week of turmoil and online fights with colleagues. The New York Times viewed Felicia Somnes' termination letter. She was fired for insubordination, maligning coworkers, among other things. In an emailed termination letter, which was viewed by the New York Times, Ms. Somnes was told that the Post was ending her employment effective immediately for misconduct that includes insubordination, maligning of your coworkers, and violating the Post's standards on workplace collegiality and inclusivity. The email also said that Somnes' public attempts to question the motives of your co-journalists undermine the Post's reputation. We cannot allow you to continue to work as a journalist representing the Washington Post, the letter said. The media is filled with these toxic, self-interested, manipulative vultures, folks. People like Felicia Somnes, people like Taylor Lorenz and Jim Acosta and Brian Stelter, Oliver Darcy, Joanne Reed, and the list just goes on and on and on and on. The same people who pretend to be so virtuous, in the end, all seem to be vicious, manipulative, sociopathic, and lack virtue themselves. It's the Ellen phenomenon. A smile on the outside portraying this virtuous, compassionate figure, but behind the scenes, in the workplace, toxic and abusive. Another one bites the dust. The only mystery is how Taylor Lorenz, serial liar who's caught in another scandal, still has a job. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe. I'm gonna get back to work. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.